Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make an American sponge cake, and this is what it looks like. The texture of this cake is light, fluffy, and spongy, and it has a sweet citrus flavor. I like it just plain on its own or maybe with a dusting of powdered sugar, but it's really good with whipped cream, some fresh fruit, or maybe a fruit sauce, or even a lemon curd. So a really great cake. So the first thing you need to do is maybe a half hour, maybe an hour before you want to start making your cake batter, we need to separate our eggs because we need the whites and we need the yolks separate. And it's always easier, at least I find, to separate the eggs while they're still cold. You need 6 large eggs. If you're going to go by weight, I mean, eggs can vary a little in weight, but today I'm using 185 grams of egg whites and 105 grams of egg yolks. So I've done this already, and then what you want to do is you separate them and then cover them with some plastic wrap and let them come up to room temperature, which takes, like I said, a half hour to an hour. Now, to separate an egg, there's various ways. If you're a person that loves kitchen gadgets, I think there is actually like an egg separator. Some people like to crack the egg and then go back and forth between the shells to separate. I'm going to show you how I do it. My egg's cold. I have 3 bowls. I crack my egg into the bowl, and then, clean hands of course, I just go in and lift up the egg yolk and then separate your fingers, and then just let all the egg white fall into the bowl, and then put your egg yolk in another bowl. Now, when I crack the next one, which I already have, but I would use a clean bowl because you don't want to use those just in case. I mean, it happens that the egg yolk cracks when you're cracking the egg, and then you don't want to contaminate all the whites. So that's why you use 3 bowls. So I would crack my next one into here and go on. So that's how, at least I, separate my eggs. So once you've done that, they're at room temperature and you are ready to go. You want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. And then for this American sponge cake, we're using a 10-inch, which is 25 centimeter, tube pan, 2 pieces. This goes in here. And I like to put it on a baking sheet just in case it leaks. I don't find it does, but you never know. Do not butter or spray your pan with one of those nonstick sprays. And if you can, do not use a nonstick pan. The reason is, with a sponge cake, we want it as it bakes to cling to the sides of the pan. And so you don't want any like butter there because then it would kind of slide. Because the reason we're going to do that is as soon as the cake comes out of the oven after it's baked, we're going to invert it like this. And if you grease the sides of your pan or you used a non-stick pan, you might find your cake falls out onto the counter. And the reason we turn it upside down is so it doesn't shrink during cooling. So that's the explanation of why you do not grease your pan. So now, the first thing we're going to do, in a bowl I have 3/4 of a cup plus 1 tablespoon, which is 100 grams of cake flour. Now, cake flour is a low gluten flour, and the reason we use that in cakes especially is it gives our cakes a really nice soft and tender crumb. I know some people cannot find cake flour. You could use like all-purpose flour, or what you could do is use 3/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour plus 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, and that essentially gives you like a cake flour. So either way, and then we're going to, for this sponge cake, use, like most of the rise is coming from the beaten egg yolks and the beaten egg whites, but we are going to add 1/4 teaspoon, 1 gram of baking powder just to help give it a little more lift. And I'm adding 1/4 teaspoon, 1 gram of salt. And you could sift this together, or I'm using just a wire whisk because we are going to sift it over the top of our egg yolks, so I'm just using a whisk. And then for the sugar, you will need 2/3 of a cup, which is 135 grams of granulated white sugar. And we are going to flavor, I like to flavor the sponge cake. You can use either, I'm using lemon zest, or you could use orange zest, whichever flavor you want your cake to be. Or if you didn't want that, you could just leave it out. But I think because it's a sweet cake, a little bit of lemon zest just kind of makes all the flavors better. And so what we want to do is just the lemon, just the outside yellow part of the lemon. Always wash your lemons. And then I'm using this microplane. You could use like a box grater, the fine one, the grate on that instead. So just one lemon, whatever size you have at the store. Organic is best, if you can find it. And what I'm going to do is add this to our sugar. I do that for a couple reasons. One, you know, when you say I put that in there, lemon zest or orange zest, it tends to clump. It's quite moist. There's a lot of oil in there. So the little grains, the little skin, I guess, tends to clump. So if I put it in my sugar like this, and I'm just using a fork, it kind of separates so I don't get like a clump when I'm eating my cake. Plus, it flavors our sugar. So I think it really brings out that lemon flavor. I guess you could eat, I said lemon, orange. You could use limes. I think that would be good too. So now, got my 6 large egg yolks, room temperature. Just put those in there, along with our sugar. And if you're using a stand mixer like I have here, use your paddle attachment, or you could use a hand mixer for this. So now what we're going to do is beat this on medium-high speed for quite a while. We want it really thick, we want it fluffy and pale in color. So using this stand mixer, that could take 4 or 5 minutes on medium-high speed. If you use like a hand mixer, it could take even a little longer. So you're going not by time, more what it looks like, and I'll show you when we're done here. Okay, we're done. That was about 5 minutes. So let's give it a good stir. And whenever you're making like any batter, you know, periodically you can stop your mixer and scrape down the sides and bottom of your bowl just to make sure everything's mixed together. So what you're looking for, as you can see, it's a very pale yellow. It's very thick. That's what you're looking for. So like I said, maybe 5 minutes, could take, depending on your mixer, a little less, a little more, but go by what it looks like. So now I'm going to add 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. That's for flavoring. If you didn't want vanilla, you could leave it out, or if you wanted to add some other flavor of extract, you could do that. And then I'm just adding 2 tablespoons, 28 grams of just water. I use a filtered water. And I'm just going to beat that in on medium speed. So that is our egg yolk. Now there's kind of 3 stages to this. I'm going to transfer this egg yolk mixer to a large bowl. I do this for a couple of reasons. One, I need to wash my bowl, my mixing bowl, because we got to whip up our egg whites. And 2, after we're going to be folding in the flour and the egg whites to our egg yolk, and I find it better to use a wide, shallow bowl than this one. I mean, you could use your mixing bowl if you have 2 bowls, but this is the way I like to do it. A bit of washing up, I admit. So I'm just going to wash my bowl and we'll be right back. So now we are ready to whip up our egg whites. You need your egg whites at room temperature, and you need your whisk attachment, or again, a hand mixer, or if you have strong arms, large bowl with a wire whisk. And make sure your bowl is clean. No grease, nice and dry. And that way your whites will whip up to their full volume. So I just put the whites right in there. And then I'm adding 3/4 of a teaspoon, which is 3 grams of cream of tartar. Cream of tartar helps to stabilize the whites, and that it prevents like over whipping. You can, at least in the States or in Canada, cream of tartar can be found on the spice aisle. If you cannot find cream of tartar, you could use just 3/4 of a teaspoon of lemon juice, or you could just leave it out and not use that either. I'm just taking a wire whisk and kind of whisking in that cream of tartar into the whites, like so. And then I'm going to start the mixer on like medium-low speed. And we're going to beat the whites, going to break them all up, and we're going to beat them until soft peaks. So that's going to take a few minutes to do, but just on medium-low speed. Okay, we're at soft peaks. If you're using a stand mixer like I am with this whisk attachment, and you're not quite sure just by looking at it whether it's at soft peaks, one way, besides stopping it and checking it, is you can start to see the tracks of your whisk in the foamy egg whites. But the other way is just to stop your mixer, and then, as you can see, get soft peaks. So that is what you want. And now what we're going to do is increase our mixer to high speed, and while we whip them, we're going to gradually add 1/3 cup, 65 grams of granulated white sugar. I'm going to add a bit at a time because I want it to dissolve into the whites gradually. So I'll just put, maybe a tablespoon. And what we're going to do is beat it until you get nice, stiff, glossy, shiny peaks. Okay, looks good. So essentially, we've made a meringue. One way to know you want to make sure that your sugar is dissolved fully into your meringue is just take a bit, rub it between your fingers. Should feel nice and smooth. You don't want any grittiness. If you do feel it gritty, which means that the sugar has not completely dissolved into the whites, just beat it a little longer. So when you're testing, what I like to do is take my whisk and stir it and then bring it up. And I like to have, for this cake, a little bit of a droop there, like a beak. Okay, so now what we're going to do first is to add our flour mixture. Typically I will do that as I'm beating my whites, but it's kind of hard to talk over the noise, so I'll do it now. So you will need, if you have an actual flour sifter, you could use that. I don't, so I'm just using a strainer. So what I'm going to do is sift, maybe about 1/3. You want to do this gradually. Just sift it over the top. Aerate our flour. Now the trick here is to try to fold it in lightly to not deflate the yolks, to not deflate the whites. So if anything, I would say that is probably the trickiest part. So when we do this, I'm using a spatula. You could use a wire whisk. So what you want to do is just fold, go around I got one hand, I'm moving the bowl up and over, up and over. I mean, it is going to deflate some, so don't panic. It's just a bit of technique to learn, but your cake will still be good. No one will notice. So then once you've got most of it folded in, then add another third of your flour. And just same thing. And then the rest. I'm just going to scrape down the sides. If you have one of these plastic scrapers, make sure nothing's sticking. And then we're going to do the same thing with our beaten egg whites. Add it gradually. Always check, go down through the center, make sure there's no flour showing. Okay, that looks good. So now do the same thing with our whites. Add, maybe a quarter to start to lighten it up. And then add half of it. Get that off the handle. And the rest. Okay. We're almost there. Just always make sure you scrape along the bottom of the bowl because we want all evenly mixed. Yeah. Pretty happy with that. Looks good, center. Okay. So now I'll just pour this into our pan. Such a beautiful batter. And the cake is so light and fluffy. And if you noticed, I don't know whether you did, but it doesn't have any butter or oil. So if you want a, pretty low in fat cake, this is it. So then I don't feel so bad when I have my whipped cream on the side. I guess I shouldn't be doing that if I'm having a lower fat cake, but hey, one of life's little pleasures. So now, you could just use the back of the spoon just to even it out. And what I like to do, just to make sure there isn't any large air bubbles, you could take like a wooden skewer, take a knife and kind of just go through. sure we get rid of some, if there's any air bubbles. So there. We are ready to bake our sponge cake. Now, everyone's oven is a little different. I'm going to say 28 to say 32 minutes. But, you know, some ovens tend to run a little hot. So if I say 28 minutes, I would maybe check it at 25 because you don't want to overbake it. Whenever you overbake a cake, you know, people say, my cake is dry. Well, most likely it's overbaked. So, I mean, it's really kind of difficult to, when you first start, to kind of judge. But what's going to happen, it's going to rise, it's going to turn a beautiful golden brown, and then take a long wooden toothpick or wooden skewer and put it into the center, like from here to here, right in the center, and it should come out clean. So, say 28 to 32 minutes. Okay, so our American sponge cake is done. Doesn't that look gorgeous? Beautiful golden brown. Feels firm, and when I put a toothpick into the center, came out clean. So now, as I said, if you leave it like this, then what would happen as it cools, it would kind of shrink. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn it upside down, and we're going to put the center core on a flat bowl. So, flat bowl, take your pan and turn it upside down on that. And then put it out of the way so nobody bumps it. Some of the newer tube pans have feet on them, so then you just put it right on your counter. This isn't old. Quite old. I won't say how long, but it's old, so it doesn't have that. Now, we want to leave it like this to let it cool completely. That's going to take an hour, hour and a half. Now, if you maybe didn't realize that you used a non-stick tube pan, you don't want to do this because people have told me the cake just falls out. So what you need to do is to have a wire rack, some paper towel, and then just put it right on there. And that way your cake won't fall out and fall apart. So I'm just going to let this cool probably, like I said, an hour and a half, and then when we come back, we'll take it out of the pan and try some. So our American sponge cake has cooled down to room temperature, so now we're going to take it out of the pan. So you can take a knife, or I've got a spatula here, and what you want to do is run it all the way around. And then also in the center, make sure it's not sticking. Okay, that off. Then we should be able to lift it, like so. We got most of it, the outside crust off. When you're doing it, try to run your spatula or knife really close to the side of the pan, and that way we can get most of that beautiful crust off. And then, of course, we've got the bottom plate. So again, take your spatula or knife, and a piece fell off and Carrie's there to grab it. I didn't mean for that to happen, but she's right here with me. My helper, taste tester, I guess. Okay. I think that's good. So now I've got my cake platter, just a plate. There we go. Doesn't that look gorgeous? Some of that crust. I like that. Okay, so now, some people don't like the way this looks. if you're that way. I personally, I don't mind it because I like it, the taste of it. What you can do is let it sit a little while, maybe a half hour, and then you could just simply, like if you notice, you can just brush it off and do it the sides as well. You can see that. And then you're just left with the cake. So I don't mind the look of that. It's more casual. I think this is more of a casual cake. So either way. Now, you could frost this cake. You know, a whipped cream frosting. If you go to the joyabaking.com website or our YouTube channel, I do have a whipped cream frosting. Different flavors, you could do that. You could actually use a buttercream if you want. I actually just like the cake just like this, or with get some powdered sugar, just with dusting of powdered sugar. Like that. I think it looks pretty. To cut the cake, I'm using a serrated knife. And we'll cut a piece. I think it's just a gorgeous cake. And it has a spongy texture. So the name is well suited. Like I said, I just typically just eat it like this. Rubbing that lemon zest into the sugar, you got a really nice lemon flavor. And sweet, spongy, light, fluffy. But you can use this kind of like I often do, like for a strawberry shortcake. Sometimes I use a scone. Other times I use like this. So I've got some strawberries. I just cut them up and just lightly sweeten them, depending on how sweet they are. And if you cut them up, add some sugar, and let them sit for a half hour or an hour, they start to release some of their juices, which is nice. Then we could dust the top. You could even, if you wanted to, I'll just show you. You could just put that and then put the strawberries on top if you wanted to, and then even put that on top with some whipped cream. Big fan. If you watch the YouTube, some of our videos, you know I love whipped cream. And so I figure, like I said, this doesn't have fat in it, so I can indulge my love of whipped cream. So we'll try it. I'll try it again with this. Oh, now that's wonderful. Like you could use berries. You could use, if peaches are in season, you could slice some peaches. You could, lemon curd would be nice with the whipped cream. So and you can cover and store this for several days. You can freeze it. It's just a great cake. You've got to try it. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyabaking.com.